explained before, I was the head of enterprise architecture and project portfolio management until April of this year. And since then, I've started my own management consultancy company. I prefer advising corporations now rather than being part of the corporate environment, even though I went through this wonderful program. So I'm going to share with you the story of what we went through in 2012, some practical things about going through a program, what is it like, some success stories, the measurements, the outcome of the actual program, and then what I find were the key success factors, actually practical level success factors. So if we start with the situation in Carlsberg, what was it like back then? So we're talking 2011. And this is the map of the world according to Carlsberg. I'm very sorry, but we're missing a couple of continents. So Carlsberg is a Danish company, and it grew heavily through acquisitions throughout many years. And at some stage, we were suddenly over 500 brands with 46,000 employees, and the company was still running on a very local basis. And in 2011, we got a message from the executive committee that it was time to leverage scale. Leveraging scale means transformation, which is scary. It means change. People don't necessarily like change. And the message was also that the IT department would be the first department to go through this transformation. So, of course, it caused a lot of stress in the IT department. We were going to be centralized. A lot of the mandate work was going to be moved to headquarters. People didn't really know what they were going to be doing. So stress increased, productivity decreased because people spent so much time worrying and they were just not being productive. We were very fortunate. We didn't have to spend so much time selling the program internally. Our CIO was a mindfulness practitioner. So this was wonderful. We did, however, have to create a business case, go to the CFO and ask for some funding, for some support. But it was a surprisingly easy sell, so we were very, very fortunate. So in 2012, when we were going through this transformation, we brought in the potential project and Rasmus, who you met before lunch. He invited us to a kick-off introduction meeting. And when you tell an IT department that you're going to be invited and you're going to be joining a mindfulness program, back then it didn't really go down well. There were a lot of skeptics. However, the first session was actually mandatory. People had to attend. So we all attended, first kick-off session. And this is where science comes in, because Rasmus communicated very clearly this was not about staring at candles. This was not about being spiritual. This was about training our brains, improving our brain power, and reducing stress. And this is how it was sold to the employees in Carlsberg, and including myself, because we bought into the science. We saw numbers. This was tangible. So 80% of the European, I should mention it was the European part of the IT department, 80% of the department signed up to actually join the program. So Rasmus and the Potential Project took us through a 4-month training program. He started off by coming into us on a weekly basis, conducted 5 sessions each time, because there was many of us. The first 8 sessions were weekly, and the last 2 sessions monthly. We also had to practice daily in our offices. We had to spend 10 minutes practicing daily by ourselves. The sessions with Rasmus, they were 1 hour, and you can see they're color-coded here. He also gave us some tools. We didn't just practice meditation. He actually gave us some very simple but effective tools to improve our work life through some work techniques. My personal favorites were meetings, how to improve meetings, because I spent the vast majority of my working time in meetings. And people would show up late. People wouldn't really be paying attention in the meetings. The meetings would drag out because we had booked an hour. But he gave us some very simple tools, very effective tools in how to become more present and how to conduct more effective meetings. Another one of my favorites that I use still today, very much every day, is around planning and prioritizations. Planning your day, getting the most out of your day. You don't just attack your email inbox, you think about what you actually want to achieve during the day. Very simple again, but very effective tools. And around prioritization, this was key also in Carlsberg because people were very busy, active, but were they actually productive? And again, in each session, we had a 10-minute mind training, and then he would also go through some mental strategies that didn't just improve our work life, but made us better people, better human beings. So this was more around kindness, being patient, joy, and letting go. He would give us some cards. We got some cards, very simple cards, describing each of these mental strategies after the sessions. And this is actually a very small key to success, because it would help us remember working with these mental strategies throughout the week, remembering to let go, for instance. And they became very popular around the office. People would glue them up to their walls, around their desks, and on their screens. So these are some of the practicalities around the actual program. And going through the actual program was, one, a great experience, but two, it requires a lot of work, coordination, because it's a program just like any program you run. And this isn't even about the core business of Carlsberg. So one of the keys to success, and I'll summarize all of the keys to success later, is having an internal champion. I'm guessing Peter was the internal champion at SAP, for instance. You need an internal champion, and we had an internal champion, a lovely lady from our communications department, who created a community around mindfulness in the company. She created our intranet, a key cornerstone in the community, where she would publish research results, because we loved the research results. Any kind of research. As you see here, one of them was recovering from information overload. Another key component is, where do you practice? You have to practice 10 minutes a day. Where do you do it? So she would make sure that there were rooms booked. She would hang this sign on the door so we weren't disturbed when we were practicing. She also, back then, this was not very big. We had a lot of media and research attention, so she would also communicate with the media. This is an article of me meditating at work in the Danish Financial Times. We did get lots of attention, of course. So this is some of the practicalities around going through the program, just to give you an understanding of what we actually went through and how it was conducted. So the question is now, of course, what happened? What were the results? We had Singapore University to do the more scientific research. I'm going to share with you the more scientific part, and then we had a less scientific research, which was our own internal survey. This part of the survey here is around our focus and attention skills. So basically what you can see is that we became more aware of ourselves, we became aware of our impact on other people, but above all, we became a lot more focused and a lot less absent-minded. The other area was around commitment and well-being. I'm afraid that there are more areas to commitment and well-being, one being job satisfaction that increased. the other being company loyalty to the company that also increased, and the normative commitment that increased. But most importantly, what we found was most important here was that the emotional exhaustion, which leads to stress and burnout, decreased significantly. We could also see, just like in SAP, that basically the more you practice, the greater the results. So this is the correlation between hundreds of minutes and how the focused attention in this case increased. But we could see that it actually increased in all areas. So the more you practice, the better the results. We also had our internal survey. This is more layman terms. It was easier for us to understand than the scientific survey from Singapore University. And again, this speaks a lot about mental peace, having overview, becoming effective, productive. And it speaks about focus. And focus was extremely important to us because we're thinkers, we work within IT, we design solutions. And we sat in open space offices. And I don't know how many of you sit in open space offices, but it's a tough environment to be productive in. People walk by, phones are ringing, people are having conversations in the hall. And then you have on your PC, you have the email notifications, you have different pop-ups, chat windows that open. So increasing our focus skills was a huge help in order for us to be productive. We felt that we were less busy and we were happier about being at work. And it became very apparent. It was a much friendlier, fun environment to be in suddenly. And we were sharing this experience, which was also a beautiful thing. The last point, less conflict with others. And I have a personal story there, because the colleague I was supposed to be working the closest to, we had a very different view of the world. And lots of conflicts. He wanted more detail, I wanted less detail. He wanted slower pace, I wanted faster pace. He and I actually went through this program together. We attended the same sessions. We practiced together. And he is by far the former colleague I have who I am closest to yet today. So we became very close as an organization. Our collaboration increased immensely. Finally, I'd like to share with you some reflections and keys to success on a very practical level, because again, our challenge wasn't in selling it to the organization. Our challenge was more around the practical day-to-day issues. You need the support from top management, and you need management participation in the program. Not saying you have to, but it really helps. Someone mentioned earlier today about mimicking the hierarchy that we're in, and who's above us in the hierarchy. Of course, if your manager is not part of the program, it's going to be pretty hard to mimic any kind of mindfulness behavior. Roll out by department, depending on the size of your organizations, of course. But because the IT department went through this together, we managed to create, again, all these wonderful results that you just could see as a department. And again, mimicking other people's behavior, having the same understanding on how to be more present, how to conduct more productive meetings, etc., how to communicate. Space for practicing in the office, this was my personal main challenge, because if I missed the group sessions that our champion booked, where was I to practice? All the conference rooms were fully booked. I was sitting in an open space landscape. Where was I supposed to go? So this was my main, very practical challenge. So creating space, I know that one of our clients in the potential project, Microsoft, are building a new office in Denmark, and they're actually creating, I'm sure you have it too, mindfulness rooms, which is a huge help.
creating a community around mindfulness. This is not your core business. Well, it was certainly not for Carlsberg. We're a brewery. We produce beer. So creating a community around mindfulness is key, and having someone to do that and having some tools to do that is key too. Especially after the program has ended, you need some kind of sustainability to keep the program going. For us, that was a challenge. So somehow thinking about how you can include it in your onboarding programs or how you can have some kind of recurrence in your practice, I found was key. And again, the champions during the program, someone who coordinates all the efforts, because it is like any other program that you would run. And finally, on a personal level, just to summarize, when people ask me about this program and what it was like, what I learned from going through this program, the first word that always springs to mind to me is presence. And I learned to become more present in the workspace and in my personal life. And I'm so convinced that this is such a great program that I joined the Potential Project in April of this year. Thank you very much.